All right, man. What's up? Yeah, we've been trying to do this for a little bit now. Um, yeah, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. Yeah, I've been following along with the podcast, listening to all the episodes. You're doing great. So I was excited to get my chance to get on.
Yeah, and so we're gonna try to do actually something a little bit more consistent, so that we don't have to, get everything out, in one sitting. It would be almost impossible. And I've been looking forward to having you on, um, just for the fact that I think that there needs to be a constant dialogue. And as a coach, I know that sometimes you'll be thinking about something, and like throughout the season something will pop up and be like, oh, that's something that I think more people need to have a conversation about. So
Mhm.
it'll be good to talk to you on a regular basis. So
Yeah,
um
no, I'm excited to like you said. I mean, after every tournament, there's something new that pops up that's like nice to talk about.
yeah, well, start off, like, let's just catch me up on so far the season with the club, and how things are going.
Season's going really well. I have 46 kids in my IKWF program, and we've had two tournaments so far. We went to Byron last weekend, and then, or well, 2 weeks ago, and then Dixon last weekend. So those are good tournaments to get started, and then we're going to Joe Thole this weekend, so that'll be kind of our first like test, I guess you would say. It's a tough tournament, but I'm really excited about my group. We're just I got a bunch of really hardworking kids that like love wrestling, which is to me the most important thing. They're not just good, but they actually enjoy wrestling. I don't have to get on them to practice hard and everything else because they want to be there. So when you get that kind of thing going on in your room, it's easy to be excited.
Yeah, luckily, I've actually been able to see a lot of them,
Mhm.
just from proximity and some different training environments. So I know a few of the athletes that are competing for you this year. So I know what you mean. And again, this is something that I talk about a lot. Is I think we always look for the coach to solve these problems, or we don't, right? Parents are always
Mhm.
looking for the coach to solve problems, but a lot of problems are solved on their own if the kid really enjoys the process, whether it's practice, whether it's being coached,
Mhm.
or just working out hard. Right,
Yeah.
training hard is an interesting thing. And I've always struggled with this, because everybody thinks that everybody is meant for wrestling. It's like, well, if hard work is like the main ingredient in it. And it's like, if you can't really enjoy, getting a hard sweat in, um, man, this is a tough sport.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that comes with age because, I mean, I probably didn't get that till sixth or
Oh
seventh
yeah.
grade where I after sixth grade is like I look forward to going to practice. When they're young, they don't really understand, but yeah, once you understand and you can like understand that you can have fun working hard, and just because it's hard doesn't mean it sucks, but you can enjoy it. And man, I loved going to practice. I mean, still looking back, like I miss some of the college practice. Like that's probably what I miss most about competing and stuff is like the college practices. The hard practices. When you get through with them, it's satisfying and you feel good, and it's just fun.
Yeah, I'm with you, but this is why, we're, and now, how old are you now?
I'm 27.
Okay, I almost
Yeah,
almost included you into the 30 club, but
I'm getting there.
I'm well into my 30s, and I try to practice as much as I can. I just love wrestling.
Yeah.
And it's a lot easier for me to grab someone and teach them something than just
Mhm.
tell them what to do.
Yeah.
So
Well, and I'm finding too, like, if you're not wrestling, you forget the feel. Like, you don't forget the feel, but like, you forget to teach things. It's like, if I go wrestle like a high school kid and then I'll come back to practice and be like, man, I forgot how often I did this or how often I did that or what this felt like, and then you can relay it better.
yeah,
So it's definitely valuable to wrestle every now and then just to remember how to coach things, what needs to be coached.
yeah, and what I've found is, most of the time when you teach young kids, maybe even middle school, even into high school, intellectually, they're not at a point where they actually understand things. So it's easier from a coaching perspective to just be like, okay, don't think, just do
Mhm.
this. And then, you put them in a position, and they do it, 15
Yeah.
times. And then slowly but surely, then it's just a natural reaction. So
Yeah. And
yeah, I
that's
think it's.
that's how I kind of operate my practices. Is not, I try not to like, bring them in and try to talk them through every little intricacy of the move. It's like I bring them in, show them the key points. Let's go start working it. And then, if they're all making the same mistake, I can bring them in, fix that. But it's like, we're going to get it. You're not going to perfect them. You're going to show the move. They're not going to perfect it that day.
Yeah.
It's going to take repetitions, but it's going to take like, let them go out and just get the basic understanding of the move. And then you can start tweaking the little intricacies of it.
Yeah, for sure. I think that, that's the number one problem in most coaching is over analyzing and over critiquing small
Mm.
aspects. It's like I don't even think I understood how to hit a high crotch properly until I got to college. Right.
Yeah.
Like, and I was a 4-time state placer, and I'm being 100% honest. I do not think I knew the proper way to execute a high crotch from start to finish until I got to college.
Yeah.
So stopping for every little detail because somebody thinks that they're supposed to perfect it. It's like perfection comes with the journey, and yeah, it's important to just keep them moving and again keeping that rhythm. I always talk about the
Mm.
rhythm of a practice. It's
Yeah.
like it's a rhythm. You got to have a rhythm, and then at the end you got a good workout, you learned a little bit, you stack 100 of those in a row, and you're going to be a lot better off.
Yeah. I mean, I plan my practices out a week or 2 weeks in advance, and I get notes from the previous competition on what things we were doing and everything. So I'm very like, I really believe in like having a plan, because when I set my practices up, it's really important to me that they flow and that we can, I want to just, because I mean, I know how I felt in a drill when it got boring. Then even when I was in college and I'd been doing it forever, I was like, man, this drill's getting boring. Like, so I know the importance of just keep them moving. And we're not going to perfect it, but let's just you're going to get a little better at it every practice. But it's more important for me to keep the energy and the enthusiasm up in the room than it is to get like every little minute detail of the technique right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when we have a practice that I feel is choppy, like I go home and I'm just like, I feel like it's like that was a bad performance by me if our practice is choppy.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I've been meaning to get out there to do a behind the scenes practice to just to get a inside look at it. But yeah, those are really helpful for me to see who's like aware of what it looks like to have a smooth
Mm-hmm.
practice, and again, if they're a really good conductor of people,
Yeah.
you gotta be a good conductor.
Yeah.
But either way, move. You got anything off the top of your head?
Just in the
Before I
wrestling
move on.
world, or
Well, no, you sent me a list of things that you wanted to talk to. I got them right here. I don't know if
yeah.
you have anything that was on that list that popped up more recently or
No, I
anything.
mean, I what if you see anything on there that you liked, I was just like I said, I've been listening to the podcast and things that I've noticed in my wrestling world that I'm sure other people have noticed that they're listening that might like to get into a little bit. But I don't know if you want to pick two or three. It doesn't matter to me.
Well, one we could start with the top one,
Mm.
and that is you put on the top high school and club recruiting, and I
Mm.
think we could go we could go a lot of different ways with this, and one of the benefits of this I think is obviously aside from the club aspect, you and I are kind of out of the high school
Mm-hmm.
organization, so
Yeah.
our perspective is a little bit different than a lot of people's, but yeah, when you sent that, what were you pointing out, or what were you thinking about in specifics?
Well, I mean, obviously, there's a lot going on in the IHSA right now, and there's a couple kids that are getting punished or dealing with the consequences that you and I have both had, our hands on trained, Colin Young and Jimmy, and so that's just at the forefront, I think, of everyone's mind right now is this recruiting, and obviously there's some people that are very um, feel very strongly about enforcing the recruiting rules, which does anyone really even know what the recruiting rules are? It's so murky, I feel like, but um, I
Well,
just
in
I just
in this situation, I mean, in one of the situations, even if you do the rules, they're still messing with
exactly. exactly. Well, the thing is, the IHSA is like a private entity, so they're kind of the judge, the prosecutor, the jury,
Yeah.
everybody. So it's like they kind of get to make their own,
Yeah. Well,
how they interpret the rules and everything else.
yeah, and this is something that we can come back to, because I really want to stick on the value of I really want to stick on the idea of recruiting and what that even means in the first place. But I do think I want to bring up and talk about the idea of a monopoly on competition. On one hand, I don't think that there's a monopoly. I think there's so many things, right? Obviously, in season, there's a bit of a monopoly, right? Like if you're there's a high school season and you have to be a part of a high school program, even in a different state. However, we're finding out that now there's new opportunities, whether it's wrestling in college opens or in the off season, you get to go to these big events like Super 32 and
Mm-hmm.
Fargo, or just open tournaments that give you exposure and elite competition. But I do want to come back to this idea of having a monopoly on competition. I don't think it's a good thing for the sport. I don't think it's a good thing for athletes and a lot of other things. But going back to the recruiting aspect, like, what do you think? Like, when you think about recruiting, you got recruited to Northern Iowa. Why
Mm-hmm.
did you? Why did they recruit you?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, people kind of associate recruiting like it's automatically a bad word. It's like,
Yeah,
it's a good, like, recruiting. That's just a natural thing, and it's like, I understand if it's like you can't pay for a kid's way or buy them a car, but okay, that gets into something else. But like, just why is it wrong for a coach to go out and go to a kid and be like, hey, look at the partners I have, look at the opportunities, like look at the terms we go to, look at the partners we have, look at this, look at that, to try to get that kid in. And what's wrong with that kid or that family being like, yeah, I love where I'm at, but they're not giving me the opportunities I need. At the end of the
yeah,
day, it's like, how do you blame kids when they're, maybe and a lot of kids are coming out of programs that they don't even have partners, or maybe they don't have a coach that's, wrestling 10, 11 months out of the year. And then people get mad at them when they want to go somewhere that's like, kind of running like more like a college style room.
yeah. Well,
And it's like,
let's think about that college style room, right? So what does that even entail, right? So here's
yeah.
the thing: are there differences in coaching ability, or is everybody the equal?
No, I mean, that's obvious. I mean,
Yeah,
there's definitely, and it's not, and that's not like to say to look down on a certain coach or this or that, but it's just like, let's just be realistic. Like, what makes a good coach is probably the experiences they've had in their career. So if
yeah,
you have a coach that has experienced wrestling at higher levels, maybe the Division I college level, or any collegiate level, they're probably going to have a little more that they can give you than a coach that reached the fresh soft level,
yeah.
and it's not to say you disrespect one coach or the other, but it's just the reality that that other coach is maybe going to be able to provide you with more, you
Yeah.
know.
And, and we're talking about disrespecting and stuff like that. And, I think I agree what you're saying is like, you're not trying to disrespect other coaches and saying that,
Mm.
they're better than others, but I also think the opposite. I think it's disrespectful that other coaches think that they have the same knowledge that I have, when, my ears don't look like this because I was like Steve-O and hit him with a
Mm.
hammer, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's a little disrespectful to the craft itself, to the
Mm-hmm.
wrestling craft, to think um, that somehow your experiences don't eventually catch up to your ability to coach. Not
Mm-hmm.
every person who has a ton of knowledge in wrestling is really good at communicating, not really good at running practices. There are a lot of
Yeah.
people that I know that are really good at wrestling, but they don't really know how they got good at wrestling.
Yeah.
But at the same time, a lot of guys that I know that are really good at wrestling know how they did it, and they've taken the time to look back on the things that they wish they could have done differently. They
Mm-hmm.
could have sped up the process. They can empathize a little bit more with the time in which they need to focus on when they really started to take the development components serious. On top of that, the college aspect, right? Like, I mean, is it a benefit right? Like we're talking about high school sports, and I keep bringing up the NIL stuff because the NIL stuff is actually the greatest opportunity for us to explain that there is an importance to putting yourself in a good position
Mm-hmm.
in the high school level.
Yeah.
And before
Well,
that,
yeah,
you
and you,
kind of didn't, you just thought of scholarships, but now that
yeah.
scholarships plus other things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and well, and I like you keep bringing up Olenek from NIU,
Yeah.
and that's like the best example. It's like he just got a promotion. People are like, oh, he transferred. He's not. He got a promotion. I mean, he worked his butt off to put himself in position to go to a university that is going to elevate him, and it has. He's probably ranked what, third in the country right now. I mean, he just won CKLV, and it's like I just don't understand why people kind of have a sour taste toward guys like that. But then at the same time, a coach goes and how do you work through the coaching ranks? You don't start coaching the University of Iowa or coaching Penn State unless
Yeah.
you're Kale or Branzos. But most guys, it's
But
like
neither
they
of
got
them
to
did.
right. Like you got to start. You start somewhere and you build up to that. So
Yeah.
it's like that. Olenek's doing the same thing. He started where they recruited him and he started there, and then he just built. He's doing such a good job that he had an opportunity for a promotion.
Yeah. Yeah. And so going back to this idea, one of the things that I'm struggling with communicating to people is return on investment, right? Like a return on investment, understanding that one, that there is a return. If you
Mm-hmm.
if you if you if you have the energy and effort, right? You have the motivation, right? To do something at a high level, putting yourself in an environment that is conducive to getting to that high level will help that out, right? There's you and I are sure, I'm sure that you're aware of people that were extremely motivated, but for whatever reason, they didn't have the intelligence, they didn't have the coaching, they didn't have the abilities of people around them to develop that motivation. And so, wrestling's hard. You hit your head against the wall too many times, you end up not feeling like you can actually accomplish your goals. So it helps to have a good coach. It can take you to another level, which then can create more opportunities. And I just think that that's an interesting, like people are ignoring that. Right now the conversation is mostly about the high school state tournament, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's unfair that this team is better than that team. Well, first, I just wish this is where I disagree with some people. I just wish we get rid of all team formats, because
Well, I
then
mean,
then it,
especially
then it would go away, right?
the individual would be better than the duel. The
But
duel, the duel
but
thing just.
I'm saying take away the team aspect of the sport. Would
Mm-hmm.
we have this conversation about who's at, what
Yeah.
school? Because isn't it mostly just because the team now has 10 studs that then can't lose at the team state?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah. Well, and
because
it's like, and if you did that, you'd have the opportunity to have, like, how many times are there? There's probably a lot of times where you got two studs on the same team at the same weight,
yeah,
and they're probably 1 and 2 in the state, and then it's like, what that then that guy would get the chance to wrestle still.
yeah. Well, no, for sure. I'm just curious as to, is the only reason that people get mad that some kid goes to like why somebody moves and goes to another place, or even if they didn't, they just go to a private school. Like, is the only reason why people are mad about it is because their team is better? Because say, for instance,
I
that
don't I
kid
don't think
stays
it's
at the other
team.
place, but say that kid is at the other place, he's still going to beat everybody.
I don't. Yeah, but I don't think it's team. I think it's just they're gonna find any opportunity they can. It's
Yeah.
jealousy. It's like envy. Even if they don't want to admit it, that's really what it is. You
Yeah.
know, like
Yeah.
like these schools that file grievances when kids leave their school to go to another school, and even if they're doing it the right way, like I think is happened in the situation that I won't mention names, but one of the
Yeah.
situations in the recruiting of a guy we've helped, and he did everything right. But I think that the AD from that school that he left filed a grievance, and it's
Yeah.
like, why do these ADs or coaches think they own these kids and these families? It's like they're searching for a better opportunity. Like, provide them better opportunities, and they won't leave.
Yeah.
And if they
100%.
choose to, if that AD were these ADs that are file grievances and things with the IHSA, I guarantee if they get offered $50,000 promotion somewhere else, they're going to go take it.
Yeah.
So what, I just don't understand the difference between that and these kids going to better training environments, you know?
Yeah. And to speak to that one thing, this is one thing that I've always been curious about with when it comes to like people being mad that a kid leaves. Now, have you ever wanted to force a kid to learn from you as opposed to going somewhere else? Like,
Um,
to clarify my point is like, if a kid doesn't want to learn from Josh Alber, do you
yeah,
think a kid should be forced to try to learn from Josh Alber?
no, yeah, no. And we've, you know, I feel like we do a really good job with the club and stuff, but I've had kids leave and it's
Yeah.
like, when they leave, it's like, hey, if you think that's what's best, I mean, it's better for everyone. If you think this isn't the place for you, it's better for everyone because you're probably going to get more out of a new place that you believe in.
Yeah.
And also, it's going to be hard for me to coach you if I know you don't want to be there. And also, you're probably going to bring not the best attitude to practice if you don't want to be in this room, you know? So
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, it's, you know, it's a couple times been like, it sucks to see you go. The team, you're good for the team. You're good for your partners. We get, you know, you bring points at the state tournament, but I don't want anyone unhappy. So if you think that's what you need to do, go and do it. I'm not going to, you know, I don't try to recruit them or like hold on to them or, oh, I'm not going to release you or this or that. It's like, you know,
Yeah.
and really for me, it's not, I don't want big numbers. I want guys that want to be there and get better, you know?
Yeah.
So if I got 10 of them, that's fine with me, you know?
Yeah. Well, we can take a little bit more time talk about some of this concept too, because you and I are great individuals to talk about this because one of our athletes, I'll say our athletes in the sense of you and I have both had a lot of time and effort um, um, put on and put into Jimmy Masney,
Mm-hmm.
and there's never been a moment where I felt, oh, you shouldn't go learn from Josh.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
wanted to create. I want to create a network of like-minded coaches that add value to an individual's life, so that individual has the best opportunity to make the most out of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like it is interesting that out of a lot of situations, people don't want individuals to learn from other people, but looking at our own experience, right? You were at Dakota, but you also learned from Sean Bourmet, I would assume, right? You went to
Yeah. Yeah. I was at
overtime.
overtime. Yeah.
So
Donnie Reynolds and Kerry Bowman's were the two
okay.
guys that kind of ran when I was there, but yeah.
Yeah, but so you learn from them, and then you go to college and you learn from um um your coach Doug Schwab, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure there's other coaches that were there at the time.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
um
Great
but
coaches.
but
Brett
there's so
Robbins, Randy Pugh.
Yeah, but there's so many people that influence one athlete's life. It's
Mm-hmm.
crazy, and it's kind of very arrogant and ignorant to think that one coach should be the only person that influences that athlete's life throughout the
Well,
experience.
I think it's counterproductive too. I mean, like right now during season, you know, you should probably be more like kind of with your,
Consistent, yeah,
yeah, consistent. You know, you don't want too many voices and everything, but especially like spring and summer and preseason, you know, I encourage my guys when we're, you know, if we're going 2 or 3 days a week, it's like the other 2 days go find, you know, I know a lot of my kids go to DeKalb in the summers. Seth Gross is up in Milton now. So I got kids going there on our off days. And then obviously you work with some of our guys too. And it's like, yeah, you know, I want them to go to a coach I trust, and I trust all those coaches. But yeah, it's if you're, it's counterproductive to try to retain them because they can really only get so much from you. Even if you're a great coach, it's gonna get stale at some point, and they need fresh voices and fresh feels and everything else, you know. And they're gonna,
yeah,
and other coaches are gonna see things that maybe you can't see just because you're in it too close, you know.
yeah,
So yeah, I encourage my guys when we're not training to get out and find other places to train, you know.
yeah. Well, that's good. That's why kids are getting better.
Yeah. Well, and it makes
Uh,
my life, and it's just like it makes my life easier because like, well, we'll go 3 days, but I know they're still getting better on our off days, you know. And it's nice for me because it's like, hey, where'd you learn that up there? Oh, great! Like I didn't have to.
yeah.
They're picking
Well,
things up that we don't have to go over, you know.
yeah, for me, as I get older, it's like I don't want to wrestle, somebody, especially like a Jimmy. I don't want to wrestle 5 days a week anymore. So it's like, hey, can somebody else take some of the
Yeah,
the the beating?
yeah. My
Um,
neck can only take so much.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, I mean, I'm interested in that topic. I could go for days on it. I don't want to. we'll return to this for sure because, it's never going anywhere. Right. And I
Mhm.
think, the states in the surrounding areas that have school choice help the athletic programs that do the right things, maximize their ability to bring people into their district, whether it's because they travel a little bit longer to go to school or, again, I mean, I told my AD when I was at Belvedere, like, you do not understand how many people would move to Belvedere if you just put forth a little bit more effort into building a wrestling program. Like,
Yeah.
and everything that I wanted to do was a problem, as opposed to, let's find a solution to that so that we can raise, my parents' property values, right? Like,
Hmm.
it's like there's so much short-sightedness when it comes to some of this stuff that really bothers me. But again, we're not in a real political position to change these
Yeah.
things. So all we do is coach wrestling and hope for the best, I guess. But yeah,
Well,
it's
yeah,
interesting.
that's why I'm glad to not to just be running the club and not really have like an affiliation anymore with a public school or private school or whatever. It just gives me so much more freedom to do things I want, and not have to deal with things like that.
Yeah. Well, thinking back, back, just, I guess, and it doesn't really matter about thinking back, but don't you think it is also cool because that it's emerging that there's a new way to do this thing, right? There's a
Hmm.
new way to get to the college level.
Yeah.
A couple podcasts ago, I mentioned, that, like, it used to be that you had to do really well at the state tournament to get recruited, but
Yeah.
now you don't even have to go to the state tournament to get recruited. Some individuals are getting recruited regardless of whether or not coaches come to, ever since they went to the 3 classes. I know a lot of college coaches stopped coming because
Yeah.
it was no longer the same tournament that
Yeah.
it was in the past. And when you think of events like Super 32 or Ironman, where, if you win that, it's way more impressive to win that than it is winning a state title, even at the 3A division, where, like I said, this weekend, multiple 3A state champions did not win the Ironman.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I can speak to that because I'm, especially in my scenario coming up. I mean, when you're from a 1A school, you have to be naive to think that a college coach is watching the 1A state tournament.
Yeah.
Like a Division 1 college coach. I think there's a lot of Division 3 and maybe 2 and other things watching. But if you're trying to get to the Division 1 level, they're not watching the 1A state tournament. I guarantee
Yeah.
it. They do not care, and that's probably any state. I mean,
And if they
I,
are watching you, they were already aware of who you are, and
right.
they're watching you because they want you to come
Yeah.
already.
Yeah. I mean, I had one. I got to think of the timeline, but because I got second at Super 32 my junior year, so I'm trying to think if that was going in. I think that would be going into my senior year. I got second at Super 32, and I was undefeated in high school, 3-time state champ. Won Dvorak. I was a Fargo All American before that, so I had some. I'd been contacted by like 8 or 10 schools. The day after I get second at Super 32, it's like no one knew me before. Now it's like 30 calls, so it's like I can speak to that the state tournament, it really isn't. I think the 3A state tournament, they probably watched a little bit more, but really with the like Super 32, Fargo, Ironman, those type of tournaments out there, coaches don't need to spread themselves out and watch state tournaments. They can get a lot of information from those 5 or 6 big off-season tournaments, or well,
Yeah.
in season 2 with Ironman. But yeah, those are the tournaments that are going to earn you money for college. Most likely.
Yeah. Also, I mean, the internet is changing the way in which you get recruited. Like, I remember for me to get recruited, I sent emails to every Big Ten school for, I don't know, more than a year, going from my junior year to my senior year. And I sent them I sent letters. Hey, this is who I am. This is what I
Mm.
did, blah, blah, blah. But now I could have put all my high school matches, I could have put on YouTube, sent them a link and said, hey, this is who I am. These are my matches. This
Yeah.
is me winning Cheesehead. This is me at the state tournament. I want to come to your school. What do you have to offer? Right. Like,
Yeah.
the recruiting component with the internet is
Well, and
revolutionizing
Yeah.
communication.
And there's, like Willie, Sailor and Flo, like they're very knowledgeable. Like they're following all the stats, all the data. So they know their rankings are pretty appropriate.
Yeah.
So, you can use that too. Like, hey, I know this guy's ranked 11. I beat him, so you can get, and college coaches can use those as well to see pretty good indication of where guys are at.
Yeah. Well, do
So,
you think this is, I think you and I both have some really good memories. Mine, some medium, some better, not so good memories sometimes too, but there's still fun memories at the state tournament and the experience of it. Do you think that, that the tradition or what do you think is happening to the tradition of the IHSA state tournament
well,
with all of these things going on?
I think that they don't understand that they're kind of playing with fire, and they're gonna kind of piss people off, like by kind of overdoing some of these rules and things with the private public and everything else. It's like no one wants to see the IHSA state tournament go. It's a great thing, and I know Marty talks about it. Like it's got to be a top 5 state tournament to view, just the way they set it up, like in the
Yeah.
assembly hall. It is. It's like iconic almost. And so many great wrestlers come from Illinois. It's a top state, so I don't want to see it get ruined. But yeah, I mean, I think people are, and some people like the Bo Bassett and that group, they got banned from Pennsylvania State for like 3 years or whatever, and they just kept on moving, found other ways to compete, went to college opens and things like that. And then with like Premier National League kind of growing and things like that, there are starting to be other avenues that you don't need the state tournament to get to college. So I think the IHSA, it would be in their best interest to kind of take a look at themselves and make sure that they don't think that they're too big and that everyone needs them, because we want them, we want to be a part of it, but at the same time, you don't necessarily need the IHSA to go on to the next level.
Yeah, no, I think you said that great.
Like it's almost like they're overplaying their hand a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. And to be honest, I think they've already in some ways started a process that has created an inevitable end to the participation. And unfortunately, I don't know if they get to redeem themselves. I don't really know how they can. I mean, it would be it's a very interesting thing, and I think you said it really good. I mean, I agree. I think it's iconic. I think it's awesome. I think the atmosphere and the environment, like it's fun to be there. But at the
Well,
end of the day, everybody who says like it's for the kids, we want to make sure that the kids have opportunities. It's like you're taking away the opportunity for these kids to put themselves in position to take advantage of the name, image, likeness, the opportunity that college wrestling presents, by chasing that high level approach or that high level success. And you're taking that away. And I'm with you. I think that they don't realize what they're doing, and unfortunately, I think that they've started a process that is inevitable.
well, I'll tell you what really bothers me, and I don't want this to be enforced this way, but it's like anytime that there's these recruiting deals or whatnot, it's that this kid's ineligible for the year. He's done. It's never like, dude, the coach should be, if anything, like the school or the program should be the one punished. Like let the kid wrestle. If it's about the kids, let the kid wrestle, but punish the school, or punish the coach that you found recruited or broke whatever violation you guys want to call it. But it's like, no, like, the kid's ineligible, but they never suspend the coach. So if you got a coach that really doesn't care about the kids, he can go out and it's just like, I'll recruit 10 kids. If 5 of them are ineligible, like, what's it to me? You know what I'm saying? Like, it just, if they want to break the cycle, then enforce the school and the coach, not like, don't just take a kid's senior year away from them.
Yeah, no,
That's what's frustrating to me.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's
Or
that's
just do open enrollment and no one has to go through it, which is what I
yeah,
would want. I don't want the coaches in the schools because I don't really believe in the recruiting thing. But
say that again. What part?
I don't think the recruiting's a big deal.
Yeah.
To me, it's like I don't care
Well,
about it.
again, every school district recruits people, right?
Yeah.
They recruit who they think are the best teachers, right? They hire the who they think is the best for the position,
Hmm.
right? Like, when I got hired at the school, they sat me down and they looked at my resume and they said, "Oh, you've done this, you've coached here, you've done this. Like, we want to take our program to the next level." It's like, okay, you recruited me. There were other people in the same opportunity, same position that
Yeah.
applied. You chose me over them because my credentials were better. So
Yeah.
you recruit. It's just, I'm with you on a lot
And
of
is it
this.
illegal for another school district to contact you and be like, "Hey, we have this job opening. Would you want to take it?"
Yeah. Well, I'm actually waiting to find out all those things. We'll see.
Yeah.
I won't post this until tomorrow, and tomorrow we're going to find out some information that will actually make this podcast probably a lot more relevant.
Yeah.
But I personally, I was offered a few coaching jobs this year.
Hmm.
And it was an effort to recruit somebody. Now, is that punishable? Is that illegal? Is that
Yeah.
something that is frowned upon? Right? Because the way the way that those conversations started was, we were curious about an athlete that you may or may not coach. So yeah, it's interesting. I think at the end of the day, there's a lot of hypocrisy, a lot of ignorance, and a lot of, like you said, people don't even know what the future looks like. They're kind of living in the past. I think a
Hmm.
lot of people in these positions have been there for so long. They're people that maybe don't even have social media accounts. They don't even know what's going on in the world as far as like, what is actually coming down the pipe as far as athletics. I mean, yeah. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. That's for sure. And obviously we could talk for days about this. We both were,
Yeah.
part of the process. We both got recruited to go to college. We both, had people. I mean, I'm sure that people offered you or wanted you to come to their school. When I was in high school, people wanted me to go to Providence and a couple other places. So, you know,
Hmm.
I'm sure that happened to you. And at the end of the day, when you're good at stuff, people call you to try to get you to go do what you do, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a very unfortunate situation, but I'm definitely interested to see how it plays out. I'm glad that you're still in the game and coaching and helping people navigate this. I think it's so beneficial to have a coach that has been in the system in the game. So yeah. But yeah, if there's anything else, I think if we go into any more topics, we'll spend too much time talking. But
Yeah. No, I mean, if there's any, I mean, I would like to talk maybe a little bit about my guys that I got in the club, just because I know you kind of have a frame of like the Nick 10, right, or the just the conferences in the area,
yeah,
and I just wanted to put some of my guys' names out there because I have 8 or 9 eighth graders that'll all be in the NUIC Nick 10 conference next year. But I don't know if we had a chance to talk about them a little bit, just kind of
yeah,
preview
go
some of my
ahead.
older guys. Yeah. I'll
Like I
just talk
said,
about.
like I said, we're definitely going to make this a regular thing because
Yeah.
I think, what I've found is, it's been really fun to do the podcast with, my former head coach, Dan McNames, and then Marty, who's somebody I mentored under. I play golf with him a lot. Like, he's
Mhm.
awesome. I looked up to him a lot as a coaching perspective. But I also wanted to find somebody who is younger, who has a college wrestling experience. So I'm really excited to keep this on a regular
Mhm.
basis if possible.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, but for sure, let's talk about who you got.
Yeah. Well, I know Marty will, when he listens to this, he'll be happy because we got between what Tyler's doing there, he's doing a phenomenal job. And me and Tyler trained together as kids, by the way. But, Tyler's got a great thing going now. And I've got um, Maddox Rabzak. We'll go to Hananiga eventually. He's in 7th grade. He got 4th at IK State last year. He's he should win it if he wrestles to his optimal self this year. But he'll be going to Hananiga. We got 2 brothers, the Wagner brothers, that'll be going to Hananiga eventually. They're in 4th and 5th grade. The Zapp brothers, which are cousins of the Cassiopes, will be going to Hananiga. They all train at our club. And then I know, Big Tony's got some guys in his club that are going to be tough. So Hananiga in the coming years with what Hananiga has going on, and then the Hananiga kids I have in my room is going to be really awesome to watch. So I know Mario will be excited about that. And there's actually another one too, Mitchell Schreier. That's tough. He's a 7th grader. But then, yeah, I don't really have a big crop of kids from any one school. We're kind of all spread over. But I got Trey Diddick, who was the IK runner up last year, probably most likely going to end up at Freeport next year. Cam Whitehead got 3rd at IK State last year. He'll be at Winnebago next year. Saya Hungman Kuhn, she's one of the better girl wrestlers in the area. I think she'll end up at Rockford East. So just a bunch of my kids gonna hopefully you'll be spotting them here soon in the high school scene. But these are kids that have been with me for almost 4 years now. So it's kind of this 8th grade class is kind of my first crop that I've had kind of the whole time, and they're wrestling really well, and I'm excited at how they've progressed and to see them go into high school now. So I'm just excited about them.
Now, how did you finish up last year at the kids state?
We got 6th overall. We got 4th in senior division, and I think
4th.
I want to say how many 12 qualifiers. So we had 12 qualifiers. And we had 9 medalists.
Okay, and so how do you think you're gonna to do this year as far as? I mean, it sounds like you're gonna have I would say a better class.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to. We're taking it week by week, and I preach that to the guys. Like, we're not looking too deep, but yeah, I mean, to be realistic, we should outperform what we did last year. We had a phenomenal state tournament last year, though. I mean, they're gonna have to be on point, but I think I'll have them in the right mindset and technically where they need to be by that point. But yeah, I mean, my senior group could be pushing top 3 pretty easy, I think, if they just perform how they can. We had the Nadig family from Rochelle. Ben Nadig got 2nd last year to one of the Cassiopes, and his little brother got 7th or 8th in novice. But unfortunately, they moved to South Dakota over the summer, so that kind of was a hit for us. But yeah, we're gonna be. I think overall, I think we could be top 3. I think we could be top 3 in the senior division.
Well, that'll be good. That'll be fun to
I mean,
follow.
It's gonna be hard to overcome. Like Lincoln Way brings like 35 qualifiers, so a little bit of a numbers game.
Oh yeah, I mean, now in kids, how is it how are the points scored?
It's unlimited scores.
Really? Unlimited.
Yeah. So
the more you have.
Yeah.
See, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's some of these tournaments we go to, they do like your 10 best point scores, which is that kind of evens it out a little bit, but yeah, they reward you for being able to get kids down there. So I mean, we're gonna qualify probably 18 to 20 kids this year, but yeah, they can pretty consistently bring like 30 plus.
Wow. Yeah. I wish there would be a different scoring system, because I mean, at the end of the day, if it's a numbers game, then the smaller markets, the areas that are hurt or less represented are the ones like us, where our population is just Lincoln Way. I think they have 3 high schools.
Well, they have 250 kids in their club.
Yeah. And well, either way, I'm just saying, like Lincoln Way.
Yeah, Lincoln Way East, West, Central, and then like Providence. A lot of their kids go there. Like there's like 6 high schools right there.
Yeah, so they have a lot of population density.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really care about that though, because I've got probably they're all smaller schools, but I mean, I've probably got 20 different schools in my club, just because we have about an hour and a half radius of kids that come. Well, not an hour and a half, about an hour. They got to be within 50 miles, but we have them all the way right up to that 50-mile mark that are coming. Yeah. So,
but just in general, I've been following a lot of the wrestling stuff this year and looking at a lot of the teams and their high school numbers and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. They're just smaller than they are towards in the suburbs. It's just there's naturally smaller schools. That's why why a lot of the schools are single A schools or 2A schools, just from population standpoint. So it's hard enough to take that small population and get them involved in wrestling as opposed to basketball, right?
Yeah.
Because it's easy to get people involved in basketball. There's plenty of basketball players, but to get them to participate in wrestling is the challenge. So our population does hurt us as far as from what you're saying. Like, I never really paid attention to the team score stuff, but as far as like awarding the talent, like I would much rather, how many weight classes are kids say?
There's a ton. I mean, there's a lot. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, maybe we'll talk about that another time about what
Yeah,
changes type of stuff you
yeah.
would make to that, because yeah, I
Well,
mean,
yeah. Well, I know what's really satisfying to me is the majority of my. I don't. Well, the Hananiah kids will be 3A, but the majority of my club kids are 1A and 2A kids.
yeah,
So for them to be performing at the level that we're getting them to
yeah,
perform at, like if we can, if down the road, ideally we go win I could do a state trophy, first place trophy, and that's with a bunch of 1A kids. That's with a bunch of farm kids.
yeah,
So that's what I like about where I'm at is I get, and that was kind of my vision when I started the club is like, I want to bring something to this area that kind of shocks the culture, like gives them a new, like, hey, you guys can do these things,
yeah,
because that's where I was, I was no one from, I think there was one guy before me that wrestled Division 1. And, it's like, I came from that small school where that wasn't really possible. And then I did it. Carver James, JJ Wolf, my partners all wrestled Division 1. So it's like, I wanted to spread that beyond Dakota. I wanted the whole area to feel like, hey, we
yeah.
can, we don't have to go into Chicago and lose to these guys. We can beat these Chicago kids. We can go wrestle Division 1 and things like that. So that's been satisfying for me to see my guys starting to compete at the top of the state level,
Yeah.
regardless of how big the schools are.
Yeah, that's something that, we just talked about on the podcast about raising the standard.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I think I'm very similar in the sense that, I had a chip on my shoulder because I was from a small school.
No, 100%. 100%. Yeah.
So getting people to recognize and use it to your advantage, to make it a chip, to have that high standard for yourself, I think is super important. And yeah, it's great that you're doing it, and I'm glad that you are coaching, and I'm glad that we got the chance to talk, and we'll talk soon. So yeah, I appreciate you coming on, and if nothing else, we'll finish up right there.
Yeah. Sounds great. Thanks for having me.